Today, on The American Land Seller, we're headed to Iowa for a conversation with Doug Baer, a multi-state land broker with Peoples Company. Licensed in Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Kansas, and the current president of the Iowa chapter of the Realtors Land Institute. Doug has built his career helping landowners navigate one of the most important decisions they'll ever make. And today we're covering a wide range of topics that affect both landowners and land professionals. We'll talk about what's happening in the Iowa land market, the work the Iowa chapter of RLI is doing to elevate professionalism across the industry, and how organizations like RLI continue to shape the future of land brokerage. We'll also dive into Peoples Company's innovative new Agrihood development. What makes this project unique and why it's generating so much interest. For those thinking about a career in land, Doug shares his advice for new agents entering the business, the skills they should be developing, and what it really takes to build a long-term career in this industry. Finally, we'll wrap up with an important conversation about ownership transition, passing farms and ranches from one generation to the next, and why those conversations should start much earlier than most families think. This is a great discussion with one of the Midwest's most respected land professionals.
Welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast with your hosts, Koby Rickertsen and Brittany Murphy. Koby is an accredited land consultant and the CEO managing broker of Iron Horse Land Company, a multi-state land brokerage specializing in farm, ranch, recreational, and development land across the heartland. Brittany is the Chief Marketing Officer of Iron Horse, bringing top-level marketing strategy, brand development, and creative execution built specifically for the land business. Each week, we bring you real-world insight and expert conversations on land sales, marketing, regulations, economics, and the trends shaping the land market across America.
Okay, Koby and our special guests, let's get started.
All right, we're back here with the American Land Seller Podcast. Super excited to have our guest today, Doug Baer, ALC from the Peoples Company in the sunny state of Iowa. Doug, how are you today?
Doing well. How's Koby?
I don't know. It's a great day. It's 2 weeks in a row where I've got the name of the person and the company name right out the gate. Most of the time it takes me about 3 shots. So I'm pretty excited about where the show's going today. And super excited to have you on, bud. Doug, you grew up kind of in a cow-calf operation, if I remember right? Kind of talk about where did you come from, and then we'll just kind of go into how did you get into real estate?
Well, thanks, Koby, for the opportunity to be on here today and share a little bit about my story. But, I did grow up in southern Iowa on a cow-calf operation that I think probably like most young boys and girls growing up on a farm, heavily involved in 4-H. Our school was very small, so unfortunately I only was a part of FFA for a very limited time, but being exposed to everything on the farm, I guess I thought the only way that I could have an impact on agriculture was to go be a live animal vet or large animal vet. So, I kind of had those high aspirations, probably at a pretty early age in 4-H of definitely kind of how do things work, the science mind of that. So I kind of headed off. I am a first-generation college graduate at Iowa State that I was lucky enough to receive a financial scholarship that helped me achieve being able to go to Iowa State and major in animal science. So as my story continued, I was on our farm. We did not have a lot of row crop. So it was strictly a cow-calf operation where typically helped a lot of our neighbors baling hay. Of course, like we've been having here weather in Iowa, 95 degrees, heat index, humidity of 110, it felt like. A lot of times I was on the back of a hay rack with long sleeves and everything. So definitely air condition is appreciated every day. So, but not being exposed to anything other than large animal, I kind of made it my goal to make sure that I diversified myself. So in college, I participated in a lot of internships. Was an agronomy intern my freshman into sophomore year. And then I actually had an internship at the National Pork Board that really changed my outcome of where I was focused on being able to achieve. Rather than me solving everybody's problems, I actually participated in a lot of research. And so that kind of geared me up. Instead of going on to vet school like a lot of my peers, I actually went on for grad school where we looked at water quality impairments in Iowa, especially on a watershed level, Koby, that what was causing some of our water quality problem. And at that time, that would have been back in 2007. Of course, water quality is still top of mind with a lot of regulation and regulatory agencies, but I was one of the first that we actually put and did a lot of on-farm research. So we actually put GPS collars on cattle in southern Iowa, looking at where they were spending their time, the distribution, and just truly gauging and quantifying their level of impact on water quality. And so as I went through my master's program, I did a lot of on-farm research, working with a lot of the regulatory agencies, USDA, FSA, the National Soil Tilth, some of those that really started to diversify my background. And then I was blessed to be able to be designated as the Director of Industry Relations for the Iowa Beef Industry Council. So that would be the checkoff dollars at work. So every time that we sell a bovine animal, regardless of its age, sex, breed, a dollar is contributed by the producer for promotion of the industry. So I was Director of Industry Relations for the Iowa Beef Industry Council, and I was actually the state beef quality assurance coordinator for over 7 years. And then through that, definitely served my tenure there and found my way to People's Company. So that's kind of a short overview of kind of my past, but definitely every time that I get a chance to serve our clients, definitely I draw upon those experiences as well, Koby.
Yeah, and that's a pretty fascinating road to getting into the land brokerage world. You're like the rest of us, right? When you were 5, that's what you were dreaming about, was being a land broker.
Well, and I think some of it is just being exposed to I think the big thing that all of us as brokers definitely strive to do is hey, this is a relationship field, Koby, that you grow up and you're a good steward of the land and you take care of your neighbors and stuff. And that's kind of what I found my niche in ultimately right now, land brokerage. But it's the same whether you're in the beef industry, if you're in the swine industry. It's all about those relationships and taking care of your friends and your family.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That relationship is still paramount when it comes to what we do. Doug, you kind of told us your path into how you became, got to the People's Company part of it. But let's go a little deeper into that. What actually got you to the point where, you took a look at being a land broker, and specifically, the farm and ranch, the farm sales, I suppose is probably a lot of what you do in Iowa, because I don't know that there's a ton of ranch land, but there is a lot of farmland, and it's very good farmlands. How did you going from the Beef Council to People's, how did they talk you into joining them?
Well, I was going to say, I guess a lot of it I relate to my sister-in-law, Molly Aronowitz. So most of you may know her. She's an AFM, American Farm Manager, that way that, she just said that there was an opening at People's Company under at that time, one of our top agents. And she just thought it was a great opportunity for me. And so I literally, Koby, came in kind of a little bit naive of what all, I never view myself as a salesman. I never have. I viewed myself as an educator. That's what I truly enjoy doing. And so kind of what drew me here is the relationships, but also just the level of details that we have to execute each and every time of sitting down with the families. And it was kind of an epiphany a little bit of just my sister-in-law kind of opened the door of hey, so-and-so is hiring here at our People's Company. Would you be interested? And so I made a connection, and that individual that ultimately I worked underneath for 3.5 years was Matt Adams. So maybe some of you are familiar with that. I actually served on his team for 3.5 years and definitely learned under him, Koby, and I contribute a lot of my success now to him, that we learned of just the level of detail that we put in everything, but also making sure that we sit down with client goals. And again, me being so science driven, I like an A to B process. And I'm sure maybe some of our brokers do too, but as you'll find out in this, it's not necessarily an A to B process. It's sometimes an A to C to a J back to a B, making sure that you do everything that we need to do at every step of the transaction. But also, again, I enjoy solving problems. And so that's kind of just, I look at this of going, typically we are in the problem solving industry, that typically there's maybe a dispute with a family, or there's a financial struggle, or sometimes it's how do we transfer this piece to the next generation, and how do we effectively do that? So that's what kind of drew me here. And that I guess what has kept me here at People's Company, I guess kind of like a lot of brokerages is there's a lot of brokerages out there, but I would say the camaraderie and the collaboration, Koby. And I would say, not to pick on anybody, but just one of the things that's different about People's Company that I truly appreciate is we are told to pick a lane. And what people may be asking, what does that mean? Well, that means that brokers truly are brokers, and I don't manage any farms. Whereas if we've got a client that we need to manage their farm, I literally will hand off that client to one of our farm managers. And it's really such a collaborative nature that you would think that we typically operate in silos, but that is the farthest thing from the truth. I've never been at a place in my tenure of some of those that we collaborate in such effectively for where we're at.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think People's Company is a strong company. You guys definitely have some amazing people. I know a ton of them from People's Company. And so I always like to celebrate the people that are doing great things in the industry. So I think that there's some cutting edge stuff going on at your company for sure.
And we definitely appreciate that, Koby. And it's just one of those that definitely our leadership has worked for. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. And so all of the vision that our leadership had 50 years ago, where we spun out of a bank in rural Indianola, Iowa, to now where we're at, we just opened our ribbon cutting to our corporate headquarters. So we've grown from a small and paw shop, I'm going to say, in the last 50 years to now we are licensed in 35 states. So, and you typically won't find a lot of residential listings. A lot of times we focus solely on agricultural assets.
I think what you guys have done with your headquarters too, now that you mention it, it's been pretty fascinating. Talk about just a little bit on that concept and how that's gone. And you've got a lot going on around that headquarters building most weeks with some, what is it, an Agrihood? Is that what you call it? So talk about how that's worked out for your company.
You bet. So we're in a little small town of Cumming, which is just a little short drive from West Des Moines. And so that would have been Steve Brewer, our CEO and president, kind of his vision of making sure that people can live where agriculture is. So we are just right off the Interstate 35 here in Cumming, that our corporate headquarters. And then you can also see a lot of our Agrihood. We're right in the middle of that. And so that's definitely, we've got a lot of planned development places, but also every Friday, we also have what's called Friday at the Farm, where a lot of the public can come out and bring their families. They can, just enjoy a time with family. And it's just so unique that way, Koby. But our corporate headquarters, typically we have a lot of a lot of meeting rooms down in our first level on the ground floor. But then all of our agents, land managers, appraisers, they're all up on the second level, that we're all basically sitting in the same area. So it's not uncommon for us to have a phone call that, hey, we may need some comparable sales on an area that, well, we know the market. Hey, sometimes we want to make sure that we have the best data. So I can literally walk over to an appraiser's desk. They're pretty collaborative in that nature to share some of that. Or if there's another case that we need to have a farm manager on a phone call, we can literally walk over to their desk and say, hey, this may be an opportunity to serve our clients better. This may not be a brokerage deal. This sounds more like they're still needing to do some things in the family. And it really helps open the doors of our collaboration across our company.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That the whole concept, and I think that you can go to People's Company's website and go check out what they've done. It's pretty interesting concept. And I know that the guys that I've talked to really have enjoyed, maybe a little bit out of the way, but other than that, they really have enjoyed the new space and just all that's going on around that facility. So it's a very cool facility. Let's go to, you have People's Company has developed over the last 50 years or plus years, a very strong national reputation. From your seat, what do you think the firm's approach to farm and land sales sets them apart from a lot of the other brokerages that are out there? What do you think that the secret to their success?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you just a second, Koby. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can, yep.
Yeah. I just said, I was talking about how the reputation of People's Company is really strong nationally. And over the last 50 years, you've really developed a really strong name recognition across the country when it comes to farm and ranch and land sales specifically. What do you think sets the firm apart from maybe others that are in the same space? Kind of what's your secret sauce that makes People's Company a little bit different than everybody else?
Well, as I say, I guess, and I'm a little biased, Koby, so take me at that. But I guess I'll back up just a step of we've got 6 different divisions in People's Company. And so I guess we kind of look at it as a view of kind of almost like a carousel, if you will, that hey, not every client needs their farm sold, but also going, hey, this is a relationship business. And so our divisions that we break out into are land management, agricultural appraisal. We even have an energy management division, crop insurance, corporate services, and capital markets, in addition to our brokerage as well. And so I think maybe what sets us apart in some cases is I think the two divisions that maybe other brokerages do not have that I think has yielded a lot of impact, but also service. Some of our corporate services division, where we actually use our national scale, but also we also say that we've got a local expertise that provide a full service solution for some of our corporate clients that have some large geographically diverse portfolios that we typically, with corporate services, we typically partner with one of our agents locally. So we have boots on the ground approach, but also being able to serve those larger clients that want one point of contact as well. For example, on some of our farmland management, if we have a client that needs to have crop insurance on some of their stuff, some of our farm managers can organize that on their behalf and help them. So it just kind of streamlines the impact. I think one of the other aspects is energy management. It feels like there's definitely a lot of emphasis right now, whether that be solar, wind, battery storage, etc., that I think a lot of our landowners, especially in Iowa, we've got a generational transfer that the average age, it feels like, of our landowners is north of 60 years of age, it feels like. And so they're being approached with different leases on some of their farms. Hey, would you sign this up? Would you this? And I think there's just a lot of questions that if we can provide consultation to a landowner, provide them unbiased information and try to give them the best information and sets them up for success. That's typically what I think our industry strives for, but I know People's Company definitely hangs our hat on that service.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. And you're right. I think that energy, those energy specialists, they are got to be a huge asset with what's going on in the world today. Maybe even just a reference for people that are working through whether a data center is going to ruin your entire life if they put it right next door to your home or something like that. And so, Doug, let's take a quick break, and we will be right back.
The Land Report. The American Land Seller Podcast is proud to be sponsored by The Land Report. For landowners, investors, and land professionals who want more than headlines, The Land Report goes deeper. Market trends, data-driven insight, and long-form storytelling focused entirely on land. This is not residential real estate news. This is land. Big land, working land, legacy land. Visit thelandreport.com and see why it remains the most trusted publication in the land industry.
All right, we're back here with Doug Bear from the People's Company. And Doug, one of the many hats that you wear, because I think, like me, you're one of those guys that really doesn't like to sit around and be bored. So one of the hats you're wearing right now is you are the current president of the RLI Iowa chapter. I want to get into, I'm on the national board this year, and it's been exciting to be a part of that as the chair of the Future Leaders Committee, and which you're on that committee with me as well.
True.
And it's been really fun to kind of be in the leadership and to be in the room when they're making some of the decisions. Let's just start with Iowa RLI. What is your membership? I know you're a strong chapter, one of the stronger chapters in the country. What's the vibe? What's going on with the RLI Iowa chapter right now?
You bet, Koby. And I guess a lot of it goes to the leadership before me. I guess we just continued that they made it such a strong chapter that I inherited a pretty prominent chapter. I think there were 6 other chapters at our National Land Conference that were recognized, but we did receive the Trailblazer Award, which that's a credit to all of our members that have engaged and definitely grabbed a hold of responsibilities themselves to deliver programming that our membership truly needs and wants. And so I think one of the things that we've really hung our hat on, at least in Iowa, is providing those educational experiences that we want all of our brokers to make sure that they're coming and getting the latest and greatest land information, maybe not sitting through maybe continuing education credits that may not necessarily directly apply to them, even though they may need it at the end of the year to renew their licenses, Koby. But we just have really taken an initiative to make sure that we provide strong educational classes such as Land 101. We typically offer a spring seminar as well for 6 continuing credits and just bring in a host of different speakers. At that event, typically every year, we bring in our Iowa chapter for our farm managers, because a lot of times we typically sometimes, even though at People's Company, I've got to stay in my lane of not managing farms. That's not what we have a lot of times for our other brokerages or competing brokerages, that a lot of times the farm managers themselves also sell farms. So we want to make sure that we provide educational experiences for them. So we typically bring in quite a few speakers that can talk about different farm management techniques on top of real estate transaction stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things I think that you guys do really, really well is you are in partnership with the state realtors, and you really do have a couple members that are pretty active in the local chapters throughout the state and making those connections, and then providing that education, that 6 hours education you're talking about. That's open to everybody, right? It's not just your chapter members. A lot of residential agents come and get a different perspective on real estate, which I think is pretty phenomenal.
It is, Koby. I mean, we just try to strive that if we're going to provide an educational experience, that we want to collaborate with all of our partners, whether that be the Iowa Association of Realtors or opening that up for some of the Eastern Iowa divisions or Western Iowa, including Omaha and some of those kind of places, that if we're going to have an event, as Koby, you know, of planning and teaching yourself, I'd rather have a full room rather than just a very limited classroom. So we want to make sure that we fill it up, provide the educational experiences that everybody needs, but also take home and be able to apply what they learned during whether that's a 6-hour or a multiple 2-day Land 101 class that we offer.
Yeah. And I think what always blows me away in the three classes that I teach is that how many people actually show up for these 2-day courses, and fly in from all over the country. I just recently did a class in Wyoming not too long ago, and had about 20 people in the class, and they were from Colorado, Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, that drove in, stayed at the hotel, had that camaraderie. It really is a great experience. And since you're instructor for RLI, let's dig into that just a little bit. I know you've had several of the 101 classes. I don't know, do you teach any other classes right now, or is that just the one you're focused on?
As I say, right now, my bandwidth is a little limited. I'm a father of 4, and my wife's an educator herself. And so trying to build a business as well as teach and stuff. But typically right now, I've only taught Land 101. There's a couple other classes that I'd like to, but just for where we're at right now, Land 101 is my prime, I guess, designated level of expertise. But also, it's one of those that if we need to provide another class, Koby, one of the things that I really appreciate about the RLI national organization is we can pick up a phone and call any instructor that's licensed to teach whatever class, like yourself, if we want to look at some agricultural marketing, or if we want to teach about transitional development, some of those type of things. It's not very hard for us to pick up a phone and call one of those licensed instructors and say, hey, we want to offer a different class at this time. Hey, what works for your schedule as well? So I think that's one of the things, that just knowing that I don't have to be an expert in all things, but I need to know who is.
Yeah. We know most of the instructors. I know them all. So all of them are absolutely top notch. It's pretty humbling to be in that room for training when you're in there with Steve Robertson from Land.ID and some of the guys that are in there just are phenomenal teachers. So,
and I sat in a lot of their classes too, Koby. So it was kind of this last meeting that you and I were both in was just kind of a humbling thing that, hey, I learned from these guys that I'm sitting in the room with as well. And whether that be through a boot camp, and I got my ALC class, the education, done in a very fast pace, but I also took some of the online versions. But I would also say if there's any brokers that have some new agents or themselves are not an accredited land consultant. I mean, definitely set yourself apart from the other thousands of realtors and go get that accreditation. I know we increased the threshold of some of the sale proceeds, but that's a small hurdle in my mind. But I would say that the classes that I took, whether they be online or I actually flew to Savannah, Georgia about 2 years ago and took the land analysis class. I mean, just the camaraderie that I still keep in touch with those individuals that were in that room covering 7 different states, whether they be from Oregon and Washington all the way down to Virginia. Like, I still keep in touch with those guys, and it's just vitally important, I think, to be relevant too. Not only to know what's going on in the local Iowa market, but also going, hey, what's going on out in the Pacific Northwest? What's going on in the Southeast, Southern Plains? And I think that's the vital aspect that we need to continue to keep at the forefront.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too. Like I think a lot of people think it's just a bunch of farm and ranch real estate agents and realtors, but it's really kind of like a really huge collection of people in the industry, everything from commercial that do a lot of development stuff, which I think is fascinating, all the way to people that are managing farms and ranches to, people that are taking up big lots and dividing them into little lots and selling them. That's their whole thing. And so it really is fascinating to see like the different stuff, because we have friends that are, like in Tampa, Florida, doing big giant developments that are, selling millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of land that they're transitioning into skyscrapers or to sports arenas and stuff like that. So
and I think, Koby, you hit on the exact word is transitional. And I mean, especially in Iowa, you typically talk about some of the most fertile farm ground in the United States. However, I would say that we have two of the fastest five growing cities in the nation, Waukee and Ankeny. And I live in Ankeny. And so you've been seeing in this last 5 to 7 years specifically, and it really was, I would say, increased during COVID was some of our people that lived in the city that maybe wanted a small acreage. They started pushing farther out of our golden circle around the Des Moines area, Koby. And just, I think, making sure that we keep relevant on some of the transitional development aspect. What are some of the commercial developers seeing? Because you're starting to see that in Iowa we just have 2 or 3 of the largest data centers in the nation going in here in Iowa. And so everybody's just kind of just making sure that we provide the most information, timely information is relevant.
Yeah. I mean, and, you talk about like I have a small development or, it's like basically it's a couple of lots that I'm getting ready to list in a community that's growing, and to be able to reach out to some of those guys, like, that are in the commercial space that do this every day and have them not just hang up the phone when I call, but visit with me about my project and what I'm doing. And, like whether or not their client is Buc-ee's or something that Buc-ee's might be speculating, and they know the people that speculate land for that and buy them up and hold them. And, like it just blows me away. Like you just start talking to people and it's like, well, I have these guys as a client and they might be interested in something like that in the middle of Nebraska. And let's put something together and run it by them. And so it fascinates me, the connections that we actually have through this organization. And so it's a pretty neat deal. And I appreciate you serving as the president this year. And next year, it sounds like. So
I'll be taking the helm again, but that's okay. But it's also just making sure that we'll reach out to individuals like yourself, Koby, and just trying to serve our membership, but also keep relevant too.
Yeah. And anything I can do to help, like I'm in the process right now of developing a 7 3-hour just continuing ed classes, because, from talking to the Nebraska Realtors Association and some of these state Realtors Association, they're always trying to find unique CE classes and so that they can offer their membership. And so, I've kind of went through with them and said, hey, what are your needs? And let me see if I can develop some stuff. And I think that everybody that's in residential is kind of fascinated with what we do in land, because if you go sit in those classes, it's always like, okay, well, this is the people that are making, that are selling the most volume. And a lot of times it's the land people that have, land and commercial that are selling the most volume. And those residential agents get real curious about it when they see that. And so that education, I think, is extremely important, especially, because it's interesting to me that people look at a blank, like land and say, well, there's no house on it. So how complicated can it be? Well, because it's in transition possibly, or could be in transition someday, or it's a farm that has irrigation or not. And, like what's the soil like, all that stuff that goes into it. It's a lot more complicated than I think a lot of those guys can see.
I agree with you, Koby. And I think the one other approach that I've taken probably is I would rather collaborate than compete, quite frankly. And so like some of the residential agents that, hey, they may have a lead on a land. Hey, we can tag team that. So I'm still the expert. You can keep in touch with your clients and vice versa. Like I typically have not sold very many residential homes. And, it's one of those that my background is in agricultural land rather than residential, that I think I would prefer to serve my clients best of handing that off to some of the more qualified individuals that know those markets, and just know that I'd rather have somebody pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help with a client, and whether that be a referral or a tag team approach. I mean, I just find that with RLI across the way of going, hey, I've got a client here that we know that you can better serve our clients here. Let's work collaboratively together. And I guess that's just been my whole approach for my early career, just to continue to, if what you give is also what you're going to receive down the way too, Koby. And it's one of those again, it's about serving our clients to the best of our abilities, and especially some of the residential agents that we've had in some of our Land 101 classes. I think their eyes are opened a little bit to the breadth and depth that we need to know about, whether it be the soil rating or especially the microclimate around a farm, the neighbors, as well as some of the planning and zoning on some of that, hey, who's the contact that we need to go? And I guess that's what puts some of our accredited land consultants in the driver's seat, that we know those contacts and where to go.
Yeah, it is definitely going through those classes really does open your eyes to it. And I think a lot of the fun thing about it is like, I always have people that are selling residential properties that, like go into that class with their goal of being, I'm going to get into land someday. And at the end of it, they're like, man, just give me your card. I'm just going to refer this stuff to you.
And likewise, right, Koby? It's like, hey, here's my card that I'll refer. I mean, it's just one of those that and I think, and I know you're seeing in Nebraska too, but it's also just going like, hey, how can we best serve our clients in the most timely fashion? And it's, hey, if you've already got that expertise, let's work together or hand it off to you and kind of do and vice versa.
Yeah. Just because you have insurance doesn't mean you need to use it,
Without a doubt.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break here, Doug. And you got time for one more 10-minute segment? All right, buddy. Well, we will be right back.
The American Land Seller Podcast is proud to be sponsored by Iron Horse Land Company. At Iron Horse, land is not a side business. It is all we do. From farms and ranches to recreational and development properties, our team brings deep land expertise, boots on the ground experience, and high-quality marketing to every listing. Whether you own land today or are planning for the future, Iron Horse Land Company helps landowners make confident, informed decisions. Visit ironhorselandcompany.com to learn more.
All right, we are back here with Doug Bear from the People's Company, and Doug is out of the Des Moines, Iowa area. His office used to be in Clive. That's what I remember forever, and now you've moved to Agrihood, which I feel like there should be some like rap songs coming out soon about the Agrihood, but
there probably should be, but there's not. So
nobody's singing about it. They sing at it though. I heard there's concerts on Fridays and all kinds of fun stuff, and just creating some energy behind agriculture, getting folks out to learn about where their food's coming from. And it's really, really sounds like a very cool experience. But okay, so let's shift some gears here. What is the most memorable or unexpected farm sale you've ever been involved in, Doug?
Wow, we are going into the archives on this one. Oh, I should have expected this one. I would say...
You got anything for dirt debacles on RLI's podcast?
I thought about that last week when we were on that call with Kat, but I would say the one most memorable transaction that I remember, like to the T, was in Iowa. If there's not an heir to the farm when it sells, it typically... we have to go back and trace the lineage. And so I remember selling a Boone County farm. It was, I think, a total of 79.35 acres. And the gentleman that owned it, he was 93 years of age when he passed away, and his sibling passed away, I think, 2 years before him. And so he had no kin in line, Koby. And I remember sitting in our people's company room for over 2 weeks, tracing the lineage and getting onto genealogy websites and stuff so we could truly execute that sale, was because we ultimately had to have the heirs' names, their addresses to contact them. So I think when we were said and done after 2 weeks of that research project, I think we had over 120 heirs at some fractional ownership that it went back up to lineage and stuff. So that was one that I'll also say I was proud of that one, of the level of detail that we had to execute on just to be able to sell that farm. That's not going to be on a front cover of a newspaper or a blog article, but that was one of the most memorable ones that I remember doing. And then when we were all said and done, like we sold that farm, and when we had the trustee that was designated sent out 120 some checks to all of the heirs, that was a full day, Koby. So, but that was probably the most memorable. But I would say probably for me the most impactful again, like it was that first farm that I was able to sell with my first name on it. That just the family trusted me with their most. I mean, and it was an 80-acre farm, Koby. But to me, that was the world, and from that experience, it's just been, we typically say deals breed deals. And I'm sure everybody knows that just, I went in with fully expecting that. I don't think I made a penny on that sale, Koby, in the grand scheme of things, but we went through and marketed that I sold it, and that's helped out to get me where I'm at today too.
Yeah. And that's kind of, and again, I think the clarification there is if you die without a will, right? Like that's not, you have.
It is. So we typically talk about succession planning and stuff. That is a real level that needs to be implemented, especially in the agricultural industry.
Well, and I think that kind of ties into my next question, which is generational transition is a huge topic right now, right? Especially in our world. How often, again, are you guys dealing with multi-generational farm families that are coming to you that you said this, I think in the first episode, that there's a lot of stuff that you do that is not, pointed directly to the sale of a property or management of a property. I know People's Company is deep into research of the public. How much of this are we doing when it comes to generational transitions?
And I would say right now, agricultural assets it's $1 trillion asset with a T. So like when you think about that, but we know that over 85% of the land in Iowa is going to transfer to someone, maybe not be the next generation, but to someone in the next 5 to 10 years, Koby. And when you start thinking about it, I guess the thing I jump to is who is going to buy that? Now, we typically have farms now. State Fair will be starting here for Iowa in the next couple of weeks. That there's going to be over 200 families that are going to be celebrating heritage credentials on their farm. That's 150 years. So we work through whether that be passing the farm or passing the generational keys from grandpa to dad, or whether we need to look at skipping a generation, going from grandpa to son or grandmother to granddaughter. I mean, I think the other aspect is that we're really seeing, specifically in Iowa, is the 65 and above female landowners is by far the majority of landowners. And so making sure that we plan who's that next generation going to come into to own the farms as well, Koby.
Yeah. And I think, like, to your point, I think probably in Iowa, you have a lot more investors maybe that own land than we have in Nebraska. It's not that we don't have any. It's just, it's a real tough sell for us to try and get an investor excited about pivots and, all the stuff that they have to do. You can buy some really nice dirt in Iowa and not do a whole lot to it, and make a very good return on your investment. But again, there are those people that are transitioning, they're either passing away or they're retiring and the kids aren't around. And, like one of the observations, I guess, and this is a good question for you, is like, I have noticed that because of how poorly the generational transfer went from farmland from, like the silent generation to the baby boomers, a lot of the baby boomers are not wanting their kids to go through that, and so they're just, I'm going to liquidate it, or I'm going to put it into a conservation program or a trust or something like that. I'm going to tell the kids what's exactly going to happen with this land. And I'm going to make it very hard for them to make any sort of adjustments so that they don't hate each other and they can hate me when I'm gone. Right.
That you're spot on. We are, Koby. I mean, and I would say probably whatever scenario you can think of, we've experienced some of that as well. Sure. I mean, I think I mean, and I think through what changed in our industry. I mean, during the 80s, that's when I was born. That not that my family discouraged me from going into agriculture, but I would say there are a lot of families that really kind of started saying, hey, let's look outside of farming or other career paths. And I think that's what we're really kind of what's coming home to roost right now is you're not seeing a lot of those family members that are maybe in that early 30s to early 40s that has a level of familiarity with farms. They don't know what to do sometimes when they do inherit a farm. It's immediately, hey, let's liquidate it versus in some cases go in Iowa where we get 30 plus inches of rain that we don't need to rely necessarily on pivots, Koby. Like, hey, that's a generational asset that, unfortunately, some of the times we see families that, hey, when you divide that rent check by 12 heirs, it's easier to divide a one large check and then let them reinvest it. But also just trying to work through every scenario with families because a lot of the families have very different goals, even sitting around the table. But Koby, from your experience too, how many of them actually share that with their family members? And so sometimes it feels like we're counselors more than land brokers of just asking the right questions that the grandpa or even grandma share what they envision. And in some cases it is that they don't want the family to be in turmoil or fight. Let's just sell it now and be done with it. The challenge that we really look at right now is, the land values have appreciated at such a rapid rate during COVID that, you almost want to use the succession planning to receive that stepped up basis on some of these farms. Otherwise, the families have such large capital gains, Koby, that they're writing a check to the government, which is, as we know in agriculture, doesn't go very well either. So definitely trying to work on with those families of going, hey, is there a plan in place? And how to work through some of that.
Yeah, I think that's huge is like being able to offer that education where, I go to expos and a lot of times, I just had a lady that has a large ranch operation. Her and her husband, they're, nearing 70 and wanting to do something with their retirement and they're not really sure, they've got some energy leases that are associated with the property that they're on, and so it's not just cut and dry. And so one of the ideas that I came up with, because she's like, we'd really like the kids to have a place that they can come with their family.
Absolutely.
Even though none of them are involved in the ranch, but they can come with their family and they can have some time. And I'm like, well, I said, I've seen people carve off 50 acres, and turn that into like a family, picnic area or whatever.
Yep.
Cabin, whatever they want, and then sell off the rest of it and put some money into a trust to protect that little resort that the family has for the years to come. And so she thought that was a pretty fantastic idea because realistically, what's $500,000-$600,000 in a trust to maintain taxes and upkeep on a small acreage.
Yep.
When the family can have that connection to the land that they spent their entire, generations putting together. So it's very kind of it's just interesting to kind of see what the pushback is and what all the issues are when it comes to that generational transition. Let's shift gears just a little bit. Okay. Technology has has changed so much, even in the last 5 years.
Without a doubt.
What's one tool or approach you've adopted in the last couple of years that made a real difference in the results for your business?
Well, and I would say that's some of our FarmWorth proprietary software that we developed here at People's Company here, Koby, that I just credit our leadership to have the forth thinking to develop that I can literally go on FarmWorth and literally click 4 buttons and I can have a map binder pulled that most of the industry I think is using surety or some sort of that. Like that, but I can have a map binder pulled on a farm within 30 seconds, know exactly where the transmission lines are located at a farm, that if there's a chance for any battery development or anything like that. I mean, it's been cutting edge that it's even so that I have it on my phone, and a lot of times we have Onyx or some of those type of platforms. Rather than going to 14 different websites, the local assessor data to check taxes, we can go to one spot and have all of that data pushed into one spot, Koby. I would say that would be probably the most innovative thing that I've experienced here the last probably 2 to 3 years is just our company's FarmWorth software that it makes my job so much easier, especially as you and I spend so much time in a vehicle traveling. I can pull over to the side of the road, have my hands on speaker, hands free set, pull it up on my computer or on my phone, whichever we do, and I can have the map binder downloaded within like 30 seconds and be able to talk knowledgeable or at least understand what some of their clients' goals are. And I still remember we just completed one auction and we were driving away and a guy called us and said, "Hey, would you be interested in looking at our farm and giving us recommendations as well?" And we pulled over to the side of the road and figured out where their farm was located, and we were able to put together a proposal for them in a very short time and very knowledgeable of that market.
Yeah, that's very cool. Are you using AI at all, or what specific AI tools are you digging into?
And I'm saying I serve on the Future Leaders Committee with you, Koby, and so I know Pathcrest is kind of one of those that we're at least experimenting on, but it's just been, I wrote quite a few blogs that I wrote the format of exactly the way I wanted it to, and told it quite a few commands to extrapolate from PDFs to compile that. I think the possibilities with AI are endless right now. It's just trying to make sure that we implement that, because I don't think AI is going to take away our jobs. I think it's the agents that utilize it and incorporate it in such a way that we can be cutting edge. I think it's going to better serve our clients very fast. So, I know we've got, all those platforms. We've got Gemini and Copilot and ChatGPT that I think everyone serves a different way. Claude sometimes, depending on what we need, but just trying to figure out a way that we can be efficient with our times as well.
Yeah, I think it's, I keep hearing a lot of people say this, and this is, I guess, the best thing that I believe is, I think there's a lot of people that are afraid that this is going to replace them. And I think that the truest words I've heard spoken about it is, I think that brokers that are using AI effectively are going to replace you. I don't know that AI is going to be able to replace the land broker or even a solid residential specialist. If you know what you're doing, there's always going to be value for you. If you're calling it in every day, phoning it in every day, and trying to get away with BS and people, that's, I think, where you're going to have your biggest problems is going forward. It's pretty easy. If you're making it easy for AI to replace you, then good luck not being replaced by it. But
I think you hit spot on there, Koby. I think a lot of it is just making sure, not everything that AI comes up with is factual as well. So making sure that we do our job of fact checking as well, but also just like, hey, you can have all of the best results, but if you can't deliver that to a client or share that we're leaving some information on the table as well.
Yeah. And I think your point here that I think everybody's got to remember is like AI. I think my best comment I've heard about it, it'll get you 95% of the way there. But it's just like Google. You better look at where the map's taking you, because you'll be in some rough country down some dirt roads if you're not paying attention. If you don't at least fact check Google Maps where it's going to take you. So
I was going to say, I've been using it at least kind of to start, at least giving me some bumpers, if you will, but then just me taking a deeper dive that at least it can save me 2-3 hours on the front side of just in an environment that at least kind of gets me to a starting kickstart as well.
Yeah. Steve Atkinson from Pathcrest constantly talks about it being an executive assistant. And I think that's the best way to look at it. Like, sit it over to the side, tell it what you want to know about something, make it do the research, make it look pretty, make it do all this stuff. But in the end, nobody's going to sue ChatGPT if you screw up, soil or something like that on a property because you're not paying attention.
And maybe not everybody's a geek like I do, because I enjoy reading the research articles on stuff, but not everybody's got time to read the 40 pages versus you could put 40 pages into that and give it a synopsis, and it at least gets you, like you said, 80% of the way there. That at least helps you as a launching pad too.
Yeah. Well, as we finish up here, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
I've got a couple of newer agents that we're getting ready to onboard.
Okay.
That have been, like in the business in like less than 2 or 3 years, all the way to one that we're hopefully going to onboard in the next couple of weeks. That's just getting his license.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I like to give them homework to make them listen to this podcast. So okay. I want to know if you could give one piece of advice to a newer land broker who's just getting started in the business, what would that be?
That's a tall question. I would say getting started, I had a pretty strong mentor tell me, listen more than you talk.
I like it.
And I think, and that's probably not the same thing that we're doing today on this podcast, but if you find yourself talking over 80% of the time, you're probably not doing your client justice. You should be asking the questions and I mean, I think, Koby, it goes back to our teaching and education aspect that, like, you ask a question and I'm okay with silence.
Yeah.
And make people, because I mean, all of us learn very differently, or all of us process things differently. I'm sure everybody sitting here listening to our podcast can remember a family reunion that the crazy uncle is talking about every story and everybody's going, okay, let's land this plane, versus, hey, or be that agent that when you do speak, that you're very well thought out, you have a lot of things to say. And I mean, and Koby, I mean, I know underneath you, like, you've got a wealth of knowledge that you can share with your agents as well. But I would just say for them to tag team along with some of your big meetings that you're going with, that's and just listening. I think that's more critical now than ever before.
I like it. I'm stealing that. I don't know that I've had that added, but that is very good. Like, I think, like, a lot of it is just piggybacking on your listening is, how do you figure out what the real goal is if you're not trying to hear what their goal is? Like, a lot of times your assumption is, when you're called into a living room to talk to a family about their property, is that your assumption is they want to sell it. And if you make that assumption, you piss off a lot of people, because, like, a lot of times they don't want to, they feel like they have to. And if I've got this basket full of tools that we can help you not sell it. I think, what is it? Hall and Hall. Mark Johnson tells me that all the time, that their goal is, if you can keep it, you should keep it. Like, why would you, and so in that spirit, I think listening is a great thing to tell young agents, is to in order to get to the point where they're understanding what their clients are trying to do. I mean, sometimes we can just partner them with somebody that's going to solve that problem for, on the other side of that too, there's a lot of people that want to sell and that think they're going to give most of their money to the IRS. And we have those tools too, where I can help you sell that land and 1031 that into an apartment complex in Chicago, or a warehouse in Phoenix, Arizona, or something, and have some monthly income that's fairly good in a lot of cases, that saves you from paying those exorbitant taxes that you don't want to pay. So
absolutely. I was saying, I would say probably two of the best that I think in the industry are actually with our company too, Steve Brewer and Adam Christ. I mean, both of those were recognized as one of two of the top 20 brokers at the RLI conference here. And I've been working really closely with Adam, and I served a little bit of time on Steve's team as well. And just seeing them negotiate, but it's basically they're great at asking those questions and then listening. Yeah. So that would be my advice, whether we're brand new in the business, or if you and I have been in it for me, looking at close to a decade or even multiple decades. It's just, like you said, being able to reach the client where they're at, because you're right, Koby. If it's more of lining out where we need to land at, that's where we've got to know. We're serving clients, and we're not self-serving.
Yeah. And everybody laughs at me because I coach my guys. We're going through a 4-week session right now on the listing, right? So last week was the first week, and we talked about where you find them, like, where do you farming for listings, and how do you go find, and a part of that is, like, not every listing is meant for you. Right. I keep trying to tell my guys, I was like, I know it's exciting to put your sign in a farm, but if that farm doesn't sell, it's going to do more negative for you than it is positive. And you have to be able to, A, make a living off of what you're doing. You can't do it for free. And B, you have to be able to sell it. And so if you can't match expectations up from a seller up to the realities of where the world's at, so, to the point where you can accomplish their goals and make them happy, all you're going to do is end up in 2 months with a seller that hates you because you're continually.
Well, no, I think you hit on my second piece of advice, Koby, is just like, I mean, I think for some of the young agents that's getting started, I'm working on, I think, close to 7 or 8 years here. So I still consider myself new in the business, and I've always got something to learn. But, sometimes the best deal is one that you walk away from. And I think that's your point that you just hit on, that, if sellers got such high expectations, there's no way that's what the market dictates. So that would be you echoed my second point to him as well.
Doug, thank you so much for taking the time today. We will put the link to the People's Company page with your information, or if you want to send me something, I can put that in the show notes for all of the stuff that we're putting out there. If guys want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Probably my cell phone or my email. That would probably, typically, I'm sure, like Koby, like you, it's on me 24/7. We live and breathe off of it, but it's also just, I want to make sure that I respond in a timely fashion. And And I think that's the most professional thing we can do. And so I guess the only other thing, Koby, for me to throw out there is everybody that's listening. I just wanted to personally invite you to our 20th annual Land Investment Expo that we'll be hosting here in Des Moines, Iowa. I know coming to Des Moines in the middle of January is on everybody's top priority, but I think definitely if you guys can slate January 12th, I think it's definitely you have to be here in Des Moines for our Land Investment Expo. Typically, that event sells out every year. We typically, I think last year, we're close to 1,600 attendees, both online and in person. So I just want to put that as a personal invite for everybody to come. It's our 20th anniversary, so there's going to be a lot of special speakers. You can check out our website, just Land Investment Expo, Koby, that it's a tab off of People's Company website, but just to put that on their docket to be here. We've got some great speakers lined up, and it's definitely a who's who of the land industry. That there are going to be some family offices, all of our software companies, they'll all be here too. So for some of you that are new in the business, come rub elbows with an individuals, ask them questions. We always have a trade show set up as well. So, but again, Koby, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of expertise that I've learned from you along the way, and always a phone call away.
Doug, I think there's a lot of friendships that I've forged in this industry, and I love the people that make me better at what I do, and you're definitely one of those people in my life. I like the fact that you care about the industry and about the people, and so it's been really great to get to know you. And I will put the information also to the Land Investor Expo or / education meeting that happens in January. I'll put that right in the show notes so that people can click and go check that out as well. Thanks so much for being here today. And for everybody else, we will see you all down the road.
Thank you.
As we wrap up another episode of the American Land Seller Podcast, thank you for spending part of your week with us. For more episodes, resources, and updates, visit www.americanlandseller.com. And be sure to find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you found value in today's conversation, please like, subscribe, follow, rate, and review the show on whatever app you are listening or watching on. It helps more landowners and land professionals find the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media for updates, new episodes, and behind-the-scenes content. Until next week, Koby and Brittany wish you success in all your land endeavors. God bless you, and have a great week.
The American Land Seller Podcast is brought to you in part by The Land Report. The Land Report is the premier publication covering land ownership, land markets, and the people shaping the future of land in America. From farmland and ranches to timber, conservation, and legacy properties, The Land Report delivers deep reporting, trusted insight, and long-form storytelling focused entirely on land. Learn more at thelandreport.com. We are also proud to be sponsored by Iron Horse Land Company, a multi-state land brokerage specializing in farm, ranch, recreational, and development land across the heartland. Built by land professionals, Iron Horse Land Company sets the iron standard through high-quality marketing, real-world land expertise, and a boots-on-the-ground approach that puts landowners first. To learn more, visit ironhorselandcompany.com.